From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Lawnside, New Jersey will host a special stamp unveiling ceremony on March 7th, honoring Muhammad Ali. This and more on today's show, so stay tuned. Public hearings are happening at the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, in a landmark case brought by the Gambia against Burma, alleging violations of the Genocide Convention over the military's treatment of the Rohingya Muslims. For latest updates, let's go to our correspondent, Henna Zubairi, who is joining us from The Hague. Over to you, Henna.
Thank you, Samana. I have just come out of the conclusion of Gambia's presentation at the International Court of Justice's hearing on its case against Burma on Myanmar in the destruction of the Rohingya people. Some of the key points in today's hearing were when the Gambian team, in order to answer the judge's questions about the number of Rohingya living in Rakhine State, to prove that, they used Myanmar's own reports about the number of people living in 3 distinct townships. These townships were the most targeted by the Tatmadaw, the Burmese military, during the 2016 and 2017 clearance operations that resulted in the genocide. The judge's question was, how can you prove these numbers as the Myanmar government claims that they are not keeping data on the Rohingya population ever since they took away their citizenship? And so for the Gambian team to use the Myanmar team's own reports to prove that more than 800,000 Rohingya lived in those townships. That is 2/3 of their population. This also proves that Northern Rakhine was extremely important. Another clarification that the Gambian legal team presented today was the difference between motive and intent. They said motive is not relevant in this case. The legalities, the law only looks at intent, and they had made the intent of the Burmese government absolutely clear because of a pattern of conduct. The mass killings, the sexual violence, the killing of victims as they were running away to seek safety into Bangladesh, the killing of young children and throwing them into wells and burning their bodies. Another key aspect of the case was that this is very, very rare at the ICJ, at the International Court of Justice, that witnesses are heard. And witnesses were heard in closed sessions, especially 3 Rohingya witnesses, a woman who was gang raped and her child was killed, a man whose wife and 4 children were burnt, thrown into a burning building. They gave their testimony. Burma, on the other hand, went back and has been quoting the war on terror and counterterrorism and using that as an excuse for all of the events that took place. They did not, and the Gambian team presented that they did not question or challenge the fact that, yes, over 10,000 people were murdered or that sexual violence took place. So this case is extremely important for the international community, as genocidal intent will be looked at very closely, especially the pattern of conduct. So thank you so much, and back to you, Chicago studios.
President Donald Trump is sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota. Trump said Homan, who he called tough but fair, will oversee immigration and customs enforcement, or ICE, operations on the ground and report directly to him. The move comes after federal immigration agents killed 2 people this month in Minneapolis. The killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy sparked outrage and large protests in the city as well as across the U.S. The White House says the focus of the immigration crackdown in Minnesota is on dangerous criminal migrants. Trump alleges widespread fraud in Minnesota, claiming it may be linked to violent protests. The claims trace back to unproven accusations about federal daycare funding. Local officials strongly deny wrongdoing. Trump said he had a good call with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Walz confirmed the call but urged impartial investigations into the killings of Good and Preddy and asked for fewer federal agents in the state. Protesters damaged a hotel in Minneapolis on Sunday after claiming it was housing Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE agents. The crowd pushed into the lobby of a Home 2 Suites by Hilton. Windows were smashed and anti-ICE slogans were spray painted on the building. The protest followed the fatal shooting of 37-year-old Alex Preddy during an immigration enforcement operation the day before. The incident had sparked days of demonstrations and rising tensions in the city. A video showed protesters shoving and throwing objects toward people inside the hotel lobby. Staff and others moved vending machines to block the entrance. Demonstrators chanted and blew whistles. Strobe lights were used to disturb anyone believed to be staying at the hotel. Graffiti reading "ICE out" and "ICE kills" covered the walls as debris littered the lobby. State Patrol and other agencies assisted local police. Federal agents later used chemical irritants to disperse the crowd. At least 2 people were detained and 1 officer was seen bleeding. Officials have not confirmed whether ICE agents were staying at the hotel. The United States could face a partial federal government shutdown as Democrats threaten to block funding for the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. DHS oversees both the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, and the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. The warning follows mass protests in Minnesota after a CBP agent shot and killed a 37-year-old American citizen. The victim, Alex Preddy, was an intensive care unit nurse. This was just 3 weeks after an ICE agent killed another 37-year-old U.S. citizen in Minneapolis, Renee Good. Democratic lawmakers say they will oppose any budget bill that includes Homeland Security funding. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called Preddy's killing appalling, saying Democrats will not provide votes if the DHS bill moves forward. The current stopgap budget expires at midnight on Friday. Without Senate approval, parts of the federal government could shut down. More than 60 Minnesota-based business leaders, including executives from Target and Best Buy, which are both headquartered in Minnesota, urged calm and de-escalation. The House has passed several spending bills totaling approximately $1.2 trillion. Senate approval is still required. If cleared, the legislation will go to President Donald Trump for his final signature. Lawnside, New Jersey will host a special stamp unveiling ceremony on March 7th, honoring 2 towering figures in Black history. The U.S. Postal Service, or USPS, will unveil 2 new stamps celebrating Muhammad Ali, the legendary boxer, activist, and humanitarian known as the Greatest. Another stamp will honor Phillis Wheatley, the first published author of African descent in the American colonies. Her stamp is the 49th in the Black Heritage series. The program is hosted by the USPS and the African American Inventors Museum, among others. Lawnside Historical Society President Linda Shockley called the moment fitting as the borough marks its 100th year celebrating Black excellence. Analysts say Texas Republicans are escalating anti-Muslim rhetoric ahead of the state's Republican primary, using claims about Sharia law to mobilize voters. From the high-profile Senate race to local contests, candidates are warning about a proposed housing development near a mosque north of Dallas. They are casting it as a threat to Texas values. Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton have traded attacks over the project, along with Afghan refugee resettlement. Cornyn has called for a federal probe, while Paxton has launched investigations and filed a lawsuit. Political ads have gone further, with some linking Islam to terrorism and others warning of cultural invasion. One candidate even used footage of a copy of the Quran being burned. Democrats and Muslim advocacy groups say the ads are racist and misleading. The Council on American-Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim advocacy group, is a target in a number of the campaigns and has rejected accusations made against it in campaign spots. Analysts say the messaging reflects a sharp turn in Texas Republican politics, reviving post-September 11th fears to energize primary voters. Israel has ordered a wider shutdown of Al Jazeera and Al-Mayadeen across digital platforms, television screens, and YouTube. Details after the break, so stay tuned.
My name is Layla. I was an average kid until Zula Inc. broke into my life because my dad discovered time travel. After that, everything changed.
You're the new girl Layla, right?
What if I don't fit in?
Abdullah!
Do I hear my name? Welcome to Vancouver, cuz.
Whoa!
You four have been specially chosen to take our project into the next generation.
You can time travel?
Abdullah! No! Abdullah! Where?
Do you really think I don't know why we had to leave Seattle, Mama?
Now here, keep these close. These should never leave your wrist.
This virtual reality game is crazy. You can even eat. This is reality, buddy. We zoomed through a wormhole.
Oh no, my Go Watch! It's gone!
What does this do?
That's Al-Khwarizmi. You know, the father of mathematics. It's because of him we have algorithms.
I will not stop until your legacy, everyone's legacy, lies in ruins. Of course it was you. You little rascals ruined everything.
Your fate will be great. Just don't give up.
Time Hoppers.
Israel has released 9 more Palestinian detainees under a ceasefire-related arrangement, according to local sources. The detainees arrived on Monday at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza to receive medical treatment. Teams from the International Committee of the Red Cross facilitated the transfer, escorting them into Gaza through the Kerem Abu Salim crossing in the south of the enclave. Palestinian figures say more than 9,300 Palestinians remain in Israeli prisons. At least 3,385 are held in administrative detention without charge or trial. Human rights groups say Israel has intensified violations against Palestinian prisoners since the start of the genocide in Gaza in October 2023. Allegations include starvation, torture, sexual abuse, and the denial of medical care, particularly for prisoners from Gaza. Israel's genocide in Gaza has killed more than 71,000 people, most of them women and children, and injured more than 170,000 others. A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect on October 10th. However, Palestinian media office says more than 1,200 Israeli violations have been recorded since then, leading to further deaths, injuries, and arrests. Restoration work has begun at the historic Great Omar Mosque in Gaza after it suffered heavy damage in Israeli attacks. The mosque stands in Gaza City's Old Town. It is one of the largest historic mosques in Gaza. Engineer Hosni Al-Mazloum from the Riwaq Foundation said teams are reusing stones found at the site. He said construction materials are in short supply because of the genocide and long restrictions. Work now is focused on the main prayer hall. Al-Mazloum said the aim is to preserve the mosque's original design. The complex includes prayer halls, arcades, and a library. Israel has ordered a wider shutdown of Al Jazeera and Al-Mayadeen across digital platforms, television screens, and YouTube. The decision was signed by Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi. The order directs broadcasters, internet providers, and YouTube to stop carrying the 2 channels inside Israel. Karhi said the move was approved by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the cabinet under an amended law. He said the channels also could face satellite disruptions, subject to approval by the defense minister. According to Haaretz, the ban will remain in force for 90 days. The report said the move expands earlier restrictions under the so-called Al Jazeera law. Last month, the Knesset approved changes allowing the shutdown of foreign media even without a declared emergency. Israel banned Al-Mayadeen in November 2023 and barred Al Jazeera in May 2024. During Israel's genocide in Gaza, a decision repeatedly extended over its coverage of the conflict. China's top diplomat Wang Yi has pledged closer cooperation with Islamic countries. He met Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC chief Hussein Brahim Taha in Beijing. Wang said China is ready to safeguard the legitimate rights of developing nations. He urged high-quality cooperation under the Belt and Road Framework. Wang also called for political solutions to regional conflicts. China, he said, values ties with Islamic countries and thanked them for support on Taiwan. Wang also pushed for true multilateralism and a stronger role for the United Nations. Taha said the OIC opposes external interference in China's internal affairs and praised China's role in Palestine, urging Beijing to do more. Chinese Vice President Han Zheng also met the OIC chief, calling the bloc a key bridge with the Islamic world. During the meeting, no mention was made of China's mistreatment of Uyghur Muslims through forced labor, forced sterilization, and other methods that have been described as a genocide by Uyghurs and human rights groups and activists around the world. More than 3.3 million displaced Sudanese have returned home since November 2025. According to the International Organization for Migration, or IOM, returnees reached nearly 2,500 locations across 9 states. That is a 10% rise from the previous month. The figures come from data gathered at more than 12,000 sites nationwide between November 1st and 30th. Most of those returning were displaced inside the country. Approximately 83% came from internal displacement. 17% returned from abroad. Children made up a large share of the movement. They accounted for more than half of internally displaced returnees. Despite the progress, displacement remains widespread. More than 9.25 million people are still internally displaced across Sudan. That number is down from a peak of approximately 11.5 million. The IOM says internal displacement has dropped by 20% from its highest level. Displacement fell in 11 states last month. It rose in Darfur, South Kordofan, White Nile, and Khartoum. Sudan's war, now nearing 3 years, continues to drive instability. Spain's Institute of Women has flagged discrimination against Muslim girls who wear the hijab in schools. The government body under the Ministry of Equality says students face unfair limits in classrooms and exams. The report, titled Hands Off That, documents cases where schools restricted or banned the hijab. These limits appeared during exams and university entrance tests. They also affected vocational placements in hospitals and care homes. Some schools barred the hijab in sports activities. The report calls these practices institutional discrimination. It challenges claims that bans are needed for uniforms or neutrality. It says such rules are applied selectively and hit Muslim girls the hardest. The report links the problem to Islamophobia. The agency urges education authorities to act and calls for clear rules to protect religious freedom. It also wants an end to bans on religious symbols, including the hijab. The report says schools must ensure equal access for all students. Gold prices have hit a historic milestone, crossing the $5,000 mark for the first time as investors rush to safe haven assets amid rising global uncertainty. Gold extended its record rally on Monday, climbing above $5,000 an ounce. Spot gold rose more than 2% to around $5,090 after touching a fresh all-time high earlier in the session. Prices are up over 9% this week alone. Gold has surged nearly 84% over the past year. It has gained approximately 17% since the start of this year. Analysts point to geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty as key drivers. Interest rate cuts by major central banks have also fueled demand. Silver followed the same trend. It jumped more than 4% to above $107 an ounce after hitting a record high. Market nerves were heightened by fresh geopolitical concerns. These include remarks by trade threats by President Donald Trump, adding to investor anxiety across the global markets. Everyday discrimination may do more than harm mental health. It may also weaken the immune system. A new study from New York University researchers finds people who regularly face unfair treatment show signs of immune cell exhaustion. The study links chronic discrimination to higher levels of worn-out white blood cells, which are less effective at fighting infections. Researchers say repeated stress from daily slights, disrespect, or exclusion keeps the body's stress response switched on, leaving biological scars over time. The team analyzed survey responses and blood samples from more than 6,300 Americans aged 50 and older. Participants reported routine experiences of discrimination, including poor service or being treated with less respect. Scientists say the findings offer new evidence that social stress can accelerate biological aging. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. Please donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.